Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I want to take a closer look at why Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm all had a really nice day after TSMC reported earnings. More importantly, though, I also want to take a closer look at the competition between Intel and TSM. We did hear some kind of discussions here with analysts and TSMC on the recent earnings call of who is the leader here and who's expected to remain to hold the crown. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So first, I want to kind of start off here with why these three companies, Intel and a lot of other semiconductor companies, were up today. We can see Intel was up roughly 1.4%, AMD was up roughly 1.5%, and Qualcomm was up a whopping 4.3%. We can also see TSMC, the one that just reported earnings, was up roughly 9%, almost 10% as I am recording. And the main reason is if we take a closer look at market outlook, TSMC did give us some great forecasts. They do expect that the overall market forecast for the semiconductor space is expected to grow by more than 10% year over year. And that bodes well, obviously, kind of showcases that this over inventory correction that we experienced in late 2022 and pretty much most of 2023 is kind of over. And we're going to start to see this nice bullish trend in the semiconductor space. So the overall semiconductor market is expected to grow 10%. This most likely means that the leaders, it's not that AMD is going to grow 10%. Usually the leaders in this space, companies like AMD, companies like Qualcomm, companies like Intel, have the opportunity to grow at a much larger rate on a year-over-year basis, especially on their consumer sides, which they're very, very dependent on. So obviously that's what's really driving this nice kind of bullish trend on these companies. Outside of that, TSMC also expects that their foundry business to grow roughly 20%. Now, if their foundry business is expected to grow 20%, it does mean that most likely their top customers, which are obviously companies like AMD and like Qualcomm, are placing lots of orders, having high utilization rates on their manufacturing plants. So it does bode well that AMD and Qualcomm might expect a very strong 2024. In forms of growth, they do mention that the growth is coming from various technologies, but the two main technologies are 3 nanometer technology, which are the chips that kind of Qualcomm is focusing, I believe, on their next kind of smartphone generations. And AMD is expected to soon start working on 3 nanometer technology as well. Obviously, 5 nanometer is also continuing to be a key driver here, which is what a lot of AMD products are in the moment. Outside of that, AI related demand is also boasting really well in forms of growth for TSMC. And we know that both Qualcomm, AMD, actually all of them, Qualcomm, AMD, and Intel, all one way or another are integrated with AI, either being on the consumer platform, Qualcomm, obviously with their Snapdragon platform, AMD with their CPUs and GPUs for the consumer market, very similar to Intel. And AMD and Intel also have data center solutions that are focused in the AI space. So obviously we can see a nice bullish trend for these three companies. Outside of that, in market segment expectations, TSMC does mention that the high performance computing, which is like your CPUs and your GPUs and your data center products, continue strong performance sector and stable demand in the smartphone segments are likely to fuel growth. So those two segments are ones that, hey, AMD, Intel, and Qualcomm hit one way or another. The other thing that we are seeing though here is if we take a closer look, now smartphone on a quarter over quarter basis was up 27%. I do believe this is why Qualcomm is up a nice amount. It kind of showcases that, hey, look, that bearish and that inventory correction that we were seeing in the smartphone business that was lasting a little bit longer than some of the other markets, right? The PC market kind of shifted a few quarters ago, but we are still seeing weakness in the smartphone business. Now, by seeing the sequential growth up 27%, is showcasing that, hey, look, maybe now is the time the smartphone business is turning around, and why we see Qualcomm up nice for almost 5%. Then we see high performance computing up 17%. Automotive, a segment that Qualcomm is definitely in right now, is also up 13%. Regardless, though, I do want to give some kind of bearish sentiment or bearish case here. We do see the IoT market is down roughly 29%. This could be things like the embedded space, someplace where AMD might see some weakness, and we have heard about that. Qualcomm is also in the IoT market, not as big as the smartphone market, but there could be some kind of headwinds there that we might see from Qualcomm in their upcoming earnings. So I do believe this is what is exciting AMD, Intel, and Qualcomm investors. Now, the second part of today's episode, I wanted to take a closer look more at Intel and TSMC and their competition in the foundry business. And this is something that we have been hearing a lot, especially as Intel's doing this 5 nodes in 4 years product. And we have heard reports that Intel's upcoming advanced nodes are going to be at least somewhat equivalent to TSMC's. Here we can see from this recent report that came out a little bit less than a month ago that Intel's CEO indicates that Intel's 18A is slightly ahead of TSM's N2. And here they do mention that, hey, look, in forms of most of the product, the N2 is very similar to Intel's 18A, but Pat Gelslinger claims that the backside power delivery, that's where Intel is doing a lot better. But TSMC did have some things to share. In forms of competition, there was kind of a discussion about Intel's claim that their technology is ahead of TSMC's 2 nanometer technology in terms of power, performance, and area, and also cost efficiency. However, TSMC's reaffirms its technology leadership, suggesting that even their 3 nanometer process is equivalent or superior to Intel's offering of 20A and 18A. So this is pretty interesting. And TSMC is saying that, hey, look, they're not going to start that volume production until 2025. We're already doing 3 nanometers right now. So TSMC's equivalent technology would have been in high volume production for nearly 3 years. Obviously, there's puts and takes here, right? TSMC, I do believe, is trying to really hold on to this leadership. We're going to have to eventually see when Intel kind of reports their earnings, when they kind of show us a little bit more about their foundry business as well, to really see. But right now, TSMC is saying, and this is not what's unexpected, right? If you are the leader, whenever you get asked a question about this, you're always going to say, hey, look, we're going to maintain leadership. No one in their right minds in the business market would say, yeah, you're right, they're going to beat us here. Now, we are going to have to follow Intel and what's coming up next with their 5 nodes and 4 years, as that's coming to an end. And for those that are interested, Intel on February 21st of 2024 will host their IFS Direct Connect. And this is where the company is going to talk about their foundry services, what's next here. They might be talking about advanced packaging, the next era of silicon design, development, and manufacturing, and also kind of the not only the future roadmaps, but also the kind of capex that they're going to be spending, the places they're going to be expanding into. So if you're not an Intel shareholder, but you want to see you are a TSMC shareholder, you might want to watch this because it might give you some great kind of information about the competitor. If you're neither a TSMC or Intel shareholder, if you are invested in semiconductor equipment companies, this might also be very important because it might give you kind of an insight of where investments are going and what type of technology can bode really well. So that's going to be on February 21st of 2024. And obviously here in this channel, we're going to make sure to cover it. So make sure to hit that thumbs up and that subscribe button. So let me know, what are your thoughts? How did you guys enjoy TSMC's earnings? And is there anything else you guys want me to cover? Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.